That divine discontent can basically be understood in the analogy as like when the banana bread is almost finished, like you can really start to smell it. It's very fragrant, and yet if you would pull it out and like jiggle it, the middle is still like soupy. So it's really not time to get the banana bread out and have it like it's a finished manifestation. And yet here you are in this stage of the process where it exists. You can feel it, you can smell it, it's coming. And the more you can acknowledge that it is already happening, it's already unfolding, that like even just you feeling this discontent of like, I want it, I want more, the more is coming. Hello, dear friends, it's Carly, and welcome to an extended forecast of this week's astrology, plus a look at basically the next 3 weeks is kind of what's all going to be included here. This is the evolution of the astrology energy series, and I'm excited to introduce these longer forecasts and then also basically clip it down and re-release it on the Mondays where it applies. So if you want a refresher, you can tune back in and just get those pieces that are still in effect for that upcoming week. So be on the lookout for those. Scooby came. She came to our show today. We thank her, our sponsor, Scroober. Say hello, Scroober. Yes, we appreciate her support. She make all this possible with her love, emotional support, animals indeed. Try to take them everywhere I go. You might also notice that we have all of this. So I'm going to do something with this here in just a moment. And this is just the top of the pad that this came off of. I go through a lot of these wall stickies. I've used them. I'm going to put a picture here for you. I've used them as an idea wall where I've done several creations with this technique now, where I can separate boxes, literal boxes, where I can just deposit little factoids and ideas and thoughts into these particular categories. And then later, once I have it all brainstormed in there, turn it into something, right? Organize it, refine it, all of that good stuff. But like, you got to get it down first. Otherwise, there's nothing to edit. So yeah, that technique has been really handy to me, really handy for me. And I think it fits really well with the energy that we are in and kind of will be in, not even just these 3 weeks, because one of the pieces we're going to talk about that's starting soon is Saturn Retrograde, and that goes through October. We're also in Pluto Retrograde, also going for several more months. So some of the energetic fogginess and that retrograde reevaluation, reflection vibe is going to be ongoing for a few months. It feels actually really interesting that there's almost this handoff between Mercury stationing direct on June 3rd in Taurus, and then on June 5th, just a couple days later, Saturn stations retrograde and begins it. So it seems to me, you guys tell me the timing in your life, but it seems to me that this Mercury retrograde process has really brought a lot to the surface and getting us to look at, I see myself and I see a lot of the people around me basically finding that I'm the common denominator in all my stories. So that really is the energy of this Gemini New Moon that we have today, of our relationship with our story is evolving. And great. I personally have been saying a lot lately, really, I get bored with my story if I tell it more than a couple times, because I grow and evolve every day. So pretty much every time I tell my story, it almost immediately evolves into something else. So there's always a leading edge version of our story that we can be telling. And this Gemini New Moon is bringing in a breath of fresh air around what what actually does that story sound like? Because I was reminded, I said something on a recording and Maddie is editing it and she's like, you said this, it was so cool. And I was like, I don't remember saying that at all. But basically that our past is modeling clay and it is an experience, but like the emotional and gravitational weight of the experience is 100% in how we perceive it. And essentially, like, the past is modeling clay and you can mold it into whatever you want. And our story is how we do that molding. It's how we, as Matt Kahn says, we give attention to our emotions by telling our story. Our story gives attention to our emotions. So we can learn a lot about how we feel by the sound of the story that we're telling. And this season, this Gemini energy, and especially this Gemini new moon, is really helping us to objectively and from a detached point of view look at these stories and these patterns that have been illuminated through the Scorpio full moon that was back on May 15th and 16th. How that really brought a lot of shadows to the surface, and those roots run deep. I'm talking to lots of people around me, and like it's like earth-shattering revelations of patterns that essentially the consensus seems to be that, like, you know, we're realizing that we are in the driver's seat of our own experience, whether we acknowledge that or not. And the way that we tell our story, the way that we take ownership of our thoughts and our vibrations and what we are contributing on a day-to-day basis energetically, you know, not that you have to feel happy all the time, but there's almost like a honoring of whatever it is that you do feel. And for me, the Scorpio full moon brought up a lot of pain and stories that I had refused to tell because I've already healed all that stuff. And the Scorpio full moon was like, I don't think you have. I hate to disagree with you, but I'm gonna call bullshit, because no, there's still lots of pain in here that has not been addressed yet. And for me personally, it's still coming. It's still unraveling the roots. They say, you know, full moons, the full potent impact unfolds for 2 weeks while it recedes back down into the new moon state. But because it was an eclipse, aka in the signs with the north and south node, they say that impact lasts even longer. It's like a 6-month unfolding. And with eclipses, they're not really events, they're chapters. They bring chapters, not events. So it's like, it might be a relationship, or even just like a deepening of your relationship with yourself is kind of more what I'm seeing around me, and is happening in myself. And that may look like hermiting and like turning inward and focusing really deeply on that relationship between your inner parent and your inner child, and essentially become your own inner child's advocate and protector. And I think about like looking at yourself, looking at your inner child as the precious, innocent soul that originally came forward before anything happened, before any needs went unmet. Your soul was pure innocence. And to be able to look at yourself and to protect yourself and to honor yourself and to listen for, what does that innocence want? What is it saying? What's it asking for? It's hungry for something. And when we get really quiet in the outside world and we tune into ourselves, sometimes what it's asking for, it's like pushing us outside our comfort zone. Like in the Scorpio full moon example, like what it was asking for was to vocalize and acknowledge how hurt I was in that moment, and like how much pain had been caused by my experience. And that steps outside like what I would normally reach for as I share my heart with the world. I tend to try to really keep it positive and like really ground in there. And I do a really good job of that. But like in that moment, all there was like my little broken heart, my little like 4-year-old broken heart. And she needed a minute. And I am her parent and she needs a minute, and we're going to get her a minute. Here, you tell your story, honey. Like, you just like stand up for your damn self. Like basically establishing this rapport and this trust and this acknowledgement, this deep acknowledgement of yourself and your role in your experience. And the story is such a vehicle. It's such a powerful tool to convey meaning and emotion to other people. And so it's like, what are you using your story for? And like that quote from Matt Kahn, like our story gives attention to our emotions. So what emotions are you using your story to give attention to? She had to take a lap to walk around. So I take the long way through this intro as far as this energy that we can expect for these next couple weeks and really these next few months / the rest of the year. This is kind of an energy that is going to be unfolding gradually, especially through October. There's lots of things that are like culminating in October. And so I wanted to draw on my earth energy superpowers of basically taking thin air and making it into something tangible. By trade, I am a project manager. I would say that's probably the closest thing to like what is my technical skills. That's really where I seem to excel, is harnessing lots of resources towards a really big goal and then getting us all to do cooperative efforts to like everybody meet this goal that we share. I'm basically like a professional goal meter, and that's basically to say like taking something that doesn't exist and turning it into something that's real. So this is going to be an example of a focus wheel. And I've talked a little bit about focus wheels. I've never got on video and drawn one for you though, and that feels like leading edge and super fun. So we're gonna do this little exercise, and this is one example of putting I am proud of myself when in the middle. And then basically like what we're doing here, this is our idea. This is what we're focusing. This vibration, back up, this chunk of words has a vibration. So the vibration of being proud of yourself. So basically the exercise is to put yourself in this vibration as much as you possibly can. Like in order to list out how and why and when are you proud of yourself, you first have to imagine being proud of yourself. And that's the productive activity, is imagining being proud of yourself. And really it's like whatever you want to put in the middle is up to you, and you can focus any vibration that you want. And the magic of it is in the holding that vibration for a long period of time. Like Abraham Hicks talks about, if you can hold a thought for, what does she say, like 17 seconds, then another thought joins it. And if you can hold that thought form for 68 seconds, the universe actually starts to move in response to giving you something else that will join that. Like it's a gravitational force of pulling the life to you that you want, that matches the vibration that you're able to find on the inside. So we do things like focus wheels so that we intentionally put our vibration up here. We crawl up here and imagine feeling proud of ourselves. We scan back through the decades of life that we have to survey, and we look and hunt for the times in our life when we have felt proud of ourselves in this example. Another few examples, like just to give you some ideas. One that I did a lot when I was intentionally jobless, was my skills and talents include ... And that was in the middle. And then I would put all my skills and talents and just fill up the page, just like cover as much of the white as you possibly can with all your skills and talents. And you'd be amazed at like the kind of random ass crap that comes up as far as like what you would like have an idea to put that in that boat of like, yeah, that is a skill, that is a talent. Oh, good for me, you know? Every single one turns into its own little celebration. And then this one is kind of a substitute that I'm going to give you as far as like, you know, like a ladder that only has one rung isn't very helpful for somebody who's this tall. So I want to acknowledge that this focus wheel is probably up here, depending on where you're starting, right? Depending on how long you've intentionally been growing your skills of being nice to yourself, is kind of how tall you are to be able to do more advanced focus wheels. But let's say you're down here, like what might be a lower step into this same exact vibration is my role models are really good at ... So this externalizes it enough to where your resistance of how you feel about yourself matters a whole lot less in this focus wheel, where we are focused on other people who we do respect, we think they're great, they got it going on, and here, okay, fine, yep, I can definitely talk about the skills and talents. Yiza, sure. The skills and talents that they possess and the reasons that I think that they're amazing. So that can be a bridge or a lower step to get into this same vibration. And I think what I found, and like, again, I use the role models one a lot to say like, here are the people that I've met that like really impacted me. Like they just blew me away, like stamped in my memory that, wow, like they are a cool person. What is it about them that made them stand out to me? And so you just like write down all these attributes of like what they had. And what I've found now, like, you know, I was making those focus wheels like 6 years ago, like basically those are the skills that I wanted. Like it was me being impressed by them was me showing myself who I was / wanted to be / can basically claim at any time. So now when I find people that I'm impressed by, I jump straight to, is that who I am? Because holy shit. And so then you kind of come at it like that, like, wow, like maybe, you know, they say like, if you spot it, you got it, you know, and that can go both ways to like criticizing and judging other people. If you spot it, you got it. Or being like, somebody is on fire, they got talent, they got authenticity, oh my God, their vibe is so good. Like if that's what you're seeing in other people, if you spot it, you got it. And so that is the beauty of finding your way into this vibration however you can. And we're gonna do just a couple as far as like some that might come to mind for myself. I am proud of myself when, and I usually do something along that lines, and then I speak my truth / stand in it. Have new territory moments. New territory moments. That's when I recognize my own healing. It's like recognizing like I've been in this situation before and never had this experience. I've never been so calm. I've never been so untriggered by something that historically is very triggering to me. Whatever the case is that I'm noticing, I have apparently, you know, it's kind of like, whoa, how did I do that? I've apparently like met an edge and moved beyond it. And here I am recognizing myself standing in new territory. And so it's like, even if you don't know how to grow, if you put a daily practice together, something that feels like good and easy and fun and flowing for your soul, but you just meet up with yourself every single day, over time, like this kind of stuff just like naturally happens. Your self-awareness, I feel like, goes through the roof. It's kind of correlated with like how much solitude do you normally get in your world, in your life. These retrogrades, the Pluto retrograde, the Saturn retrograde, that'll be extended, and like the Gemini New Moon and the Sagittarius full moon, both all support this narrative of a little extra solitude the next couple months is likely going to pay off big time in the return on your investment, in terms of like really focusing into managing your own energy, like just as much as we can disengage from everybody else around us, let them worry about themselves, and focus inward into our body and our energy, and how does that feel? How's our world going? And as a means of kind of like a litmus test of how's our world going, we can do things like this to do a focus wheel. And the litmus test is like, can you do it? Can you list some things that make you feel proud of yourself? If not, if that's like a little too far, then again, try the role models one. So another one, I am proud of myself when I try. When I show up, when I'm scared and I try anyway. And that, like, facing fears, that's a big one. Doing new things, I'll say. Things that I've never done before. Like, I have a whole thing about, like, if I'm gonna do something, I want it to prove that I'm bigger than I knew I was. Like, that's really worthwhile as far as an investment in my energy. So, like, last year, I created a 10-module training course, or for the last 12 months, I should say. I just wrapped it up. And then in this coming year, I'm getting to design a certificate program to certify that someone is this rural grocery specialist. And so that I've also never done. When I opened a grocery store, I'd never done that before. When I became the coordinator of this convention for this like statewide organization, I'd never done that before. When I moved to Dallas, never did that before. Right now feels like there is something coming into your life that it's never been there before. You've never done it before. And if you can meet this, if you can open yourself and take the leap, there is something on the other side of it that you can't even imagine it, because you won't go there yet as far as like how good it really is. That's the only reason you can't see what's on the other side of this leap of faith, is because right now, like, the current limits of your reality, what's happening is out here, and that's cool. You know, like, you don't have to see it for it to continue to unfold. And in fact, this energy also gives me the analogy, or I want to share the analogy of the banana bread. So when we manifest things, when we're talking about energy and holding thoughts and focusing our life force, aka like our attention, our whatever we're consuming into our energy field, when we focus that, it is basically like lining us up with a higher and higher and higher version of our vortex. And our vortex holds our creations. And basically, like, when you study Abraham Hicks, like, the first 3 steps of her process that she teaches is, number 1, you ask by feeling. You ask by feeling negative emotion. It automatically, like, negative emotion is a rocket of desire that gets launched. And step 2 is immediately upon your rocket of desire being launched is source answers. 1, you ask, 2, source answers. So that happens immediately. And then step 3 is you manifest it by allowing it into your personal reality. And you allow it into your reality by tuning your personal frequency to the frequency that matches the manifestation that you want. So if you have something in your vortex that feels like abundant love and resources and everything that you've ever wanted unfolding, in order to get it to come into your reality, you first have to feel abundant and full of love and excited about it is unfolding. And so this, I feel like, is such a great bridge into this energy where you can acknowledge, as much as you can acknowledge, I should say, that it is already happening, is like pushing your foot on the gas pedal of making it come to you. So acknowledging that it's already happening. And this is that. This is spending time in what is working in my life. What's going well? Why, maybe not even why have I been where I've been? Like, that would be a really great one to do as well, as far as like, I'm grateful for my past because, yeah, that's a good one. As far as like making peace with, I came through these lessons and I'm so grateful I did. I got something out of every single bit of it. So this is an idea of something to do to be with the fogginess that retrogrades can bring. So like I said, we're in that through October. And these lunar cycles as well, the Gemini New Moon, which is kind of bringing us this new perspective of our own story, and the Sagittarius full moon that then is illuminating any beliefs that we have about ourselves or the world that are limiting us from moving forward with whatever this Gemini soul infusion, seed of potential the Gemini New Moon is bringing to us. So I love talking about the new moon and the full moon in the same cycle together, because they really are working together. And more than that, they build on the cycles that came before them. So it's like these eclipse cycles that we had at the end of April with the Taurus new moon, solar eclipse, and then the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse. They brought something like heavy up to the surface. Like, there was a shit ton of strength that carried this darkness up into the light where we can see it. And now this Gemini new moon and then the Scorpio full moon is the next level of processing that. And so much of the work of processing that is honoring what it is, and story is such a beautiful way to do that. Tuning into your own vibration by attempting to do focus wheels is such a great way to do that. I love how Kahn says, like, I really hope that I'm sharing these tools and that you're not going to use it as a way to beat up on yourself. I can't control what you do with it, but like, let's say you tried to do this one, you're like, I just can't think of, oh my God, I'm such a loser because I'm never proud of myself. Like, I really hope that you're not going to beat up on yourself with it. That's why I'm like saying, like, you could step it down into lots of other options of focusing as positively as you can reach for in any moment. That's a good foundation for this banana bread analogy then. So when we ask for things, like we are launching these rockets of desire into our vortex, we're doing it in terms of an individual want. Like somebody's rude to me and I wish people were nicer, and that sting of them being rude to me is that launching of the rocket of desire of wanting people to be nicer, and that exists in my vortex. That reality where people are nice to me exists at a high frequency in my vortex. And so basically all day, every day, we are launching individual pieces into our vortex. And that's like these ingredients of a recipe. Like, you put in eggs and you put in flour and you put in bananas and you put in vanilla and you put in all of these different ingredients, and that's those individual rockets of desire getting launched. And it's not gonna be eggs and flour, and you're not going to get back out all of the individual ingredients. It got all mixed together. And when we have these moments of feeling like there's more than what we have right now, like I call this like this divine discontent of like, here's where I feel like I am, and here's what I want / hope for, basically something that's outside my current experience. And like the imbalance between these two things is your divine discontent. And when we have divine discontent, and the more profound it is, like the more powerful it is, I mean, I feel like the bigger the manifestation is. But like that divine discontent can basically be understood in the analogy as like when the banana bread is almost finished, like you can really start to smell it. It's very fragrant. And yet if you would pull it out and like jiggle it, the middle is still like soupy. So it's really not time to get the banana bread out and have it like it's a finished manifestation. And yet here you are in this stage of the process where it exists. You can feel it, you can smell it, it's coming. And the more you can acknowledge that it is already happening, it's already unfolding, that like even just you feeling this discontent of like, I want it, I want more, the more is coming. And that things like this are helpful to like kind of go general away from needing to plan out like exactly what it's going to be and what it's going to look like when it comes, because like usually we don't know. And allowing your vibration to just rise and let yourself think nice thoughts about yourself, let yourself recognize the tension in your being and process it and release it. Just tend to your soil, nurture yourself, put the nutrients into the soil that are going to let the seeds reach a fertile home and be able to take root and sprout into something that is absolutely on its way. And that right now, if you're feeling any discontent, any reaching for something more than what you have, please trust that that is smelling the banana bread. It is almost done, not quite done yet. And that we can accelerate that process of it unfolding for us. We can rest ourselves in the final stages of it baking by engaging in things like this, where basically it's just like, let's just spend a little time petting our tender spirit, giving ourselves some TLC, because basically here in almost no time, we're going to have the sun in Cancer. At the end of June, it'll be entering Cancer. So we'll have a Cancer new moon and then a Capricorn full moon. So we'll be on to this next lunar cycle, but more about that when we get there. The other major piece that we have going on June 3rd is Mercury stationing direct. So I mentioned that just briefly, as far as like, it feels like Mercury did its retrograde and it's ending, and then it like hands off the baton to Saturn and it's going to do its retrograde and it's going to do its whole thing. That I did want to mention also, just because it did happen just a couple days ago. I found a video by Tom Jacobs where he goes through all of the planets in the birth chart and if they are retrograde in your natal chart, and he gives his evolutionary astrology interpretation of what that signifies as far as your soul's intention coming into this life. And particularly the Saturn retrograde explanation, which I do have in my chart. And I mean, basically, I would think about 40% have it in their chart, because it goes retrograde for like 5 months a year. So, not quite half people have Saturn retrograde in their birth chart. And so this explanation, like, again, going back to the story, like, it really gave me a new perspective, a new piece, a new way to phrase my story. And just as like a brief baby example, so my old story was basically that my dad was absent, that he worked on the road and he would be gone for months at a time, and that was what that was. And in Tom Jacobs' explanation, he talks about Saturn retrograde and how one of the very first interpretations that he found for this energy when he was first studying it was that it signifies that the father will somehow be absent from the child's upbringing. And he went on to say how like that was a really like Debbie Downer kind of, I don't think that's the word he used, but like that's like not a very fun interpretation. So he really wanted to like find something a little bit more empowering, but that eventually it really does make sense as far as a signifier, just because Saturn retrograde, and he also said absence could include physical absence or emotional absence. And of one or both parents or caregivers. And basically the result is, one, that the child grows up without the influence or like specific role model that feels like what they personally want to perpetuate in the world. Like basically with Saturn retrograde, there is this like disconnection from your parents' path. Like they had their own path, and you grew up with their path, and your conclusion was, I don't want this. I want something different. So I'm going to be different. I'm going to show up in the world differently. And Saturn represents our maturity. So with Saturn retrograde, it's like your maturing process is in recognizing that your way of doing it, of working, of creating structure in the world and creating a life for yourself, and like your great work and your individuality and your maturation process and individuation process, like all of that is like basically just getting everybody else's conditioning out of your process so that you can invent your own wheel. That was basically his interpretation for any of the retrogrades, is like you will do an invention process of like your own unique way. And so Saturn retrograde, because I have it in my chart, I have had a really interesting experience tracking the Saturn retrogrades back through the last 5 or 6 years. And I did that when I put together my Saturn return story time, which will air on the channel tomorrow. I cannot believe that this timing, I guess I can't believe, this timing lined itself up so that like I first started working on this video about 6 weeks ago with like a deep dive through my Saturn return transit, because I realized that it coincided with the most magical years of my life, and that's just not ever what you hear as far as the Saturn return story. And so I really wanted to like figure it out and see why might that be that mine was so amazing. And so I did a deep dive and I put together, like a timeline of what happened in my life alongside the Saturn transits. So I got to see like when it went retrograde, what happened, when it went direct, what happened. Oh my gosh, it's so freaking cool. And so that video comes out tomorrow, and I cannot believe, like I recorded it once, I don't know, like a month ago, and it wasn't right, and I deleted that and then recorded it again like a week later, and then didn't edit it for like 2.5 weeks, and then finally did. And I am just so in love with it. It was such a fun project of self-reflection, and has really stirred all of this up as far as the Scorpio full moon illuminating my patterns and the roots of my patterns, and this new story, AKA getting bored with my old story, that is letting me feel like I really am going to, like I'm taking an evolutionary step forward through all of this self-reflection that happened. So to think that like this video coming out like just a few days before Saturn retrograde, like to coincide with this transit, also this coming Friday in the Astrology and Coffee live stream, I'll be going into Saturn retrograde in Aquarius in depth. Super excited about that. So in this last little bit, this is something new that I'm trying out for the newsletter, and these are intended to be soul-stirring questions. So for each transit, I have a question for you, something to plant as a seed in your noggin for later. So for the Gemini New Moon today, May 30th, what if everything you think you know about yourself is imaginary? Chew on that. That comes from a video called Unknow Yourself by Kahn. I'll put the link in the description. For Mercury stationing direct in Taurus on June 3rd, what in your life calms your mind? Please do more of that. For Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, June 5th through October 23rd, I really invite you to attempt the focus wheels for I'm proud of myself when my skills and talents include, my role models are really good at ... and any others that sound fun. Like when I found focus wheels, oh my gosh, like I would just do them over and over and over again. And like sometimes I would just write the word love in the middle, and it would just be a filling up of the page of all of the things that I love. And I do this mostly in my journal. I did it on here today just for the fun of making it big for the video. But yeah, that's a really, really fun hobby as far as tuning your vibration. For Mercury re-entering Gemini, which will be June 13th, my question is, what is your brain curious about / fascinated by? So, don't mean to flip you off there. Something naturally grabs your attention. When Mercury's in Gemini, like, our attention can be beguiled by things that don't make much sense in the moment. But as we allow our curiosity to naturally unfold, it's like the art of curiosity, all of the threads end up being woven back together. So allow your curiosity to run wild and think about, like, you know, or like another focus wheel that I really love to make often is I love to learn about ... Like, put that in the middle. I love to learn about, and then all of the things of, like, oh my gosh, astrology and human design and the gene keys and human behavior and psychology and psychoanalysis and Jungian psychology and the cognitive functions and Myers-Briggs, and you just keep on going, and it's so much fun. And I do invite you to step into that one. That one's a real good time. And last but not least, for the Sagittarius full moon on June 14th, I invite you to contemplate, what are the goals of my beliefs? And I offer this based on a thought, a perspective that I gained out of the book, The Courage to Be Disliked. And I have this as a link on YouTube. Somebody else has a video on YouTube that I'm going to put in the description. But obviously you can also buy the book or find it on Audible. But basically the premise is that the goals of your soul are being enacted no matter what you personally think about your life. And so it's all really about, like, that modeling clay and how you want to mold it. And like Maddie said, like, you know, maybe in the past you've molded a hellscape, but that doesn't mean that you can't remold it into, like, some little zoo animals or, like, little cuddly babies or whatever. You can remold it into something that feels better and better and better. And when we think about what are the goals of our beliefs, I personally, to answer that question, the goal of my belief is to find beliefs, which is to say thoughts that we just keep thinking, find a regular pattern of thoughts, aka beliefs, that helps me to feel as good and empowered and safe and secure and hopeful and inventive and inspired as I can possibly be. To allow myself to open in the safety and security of this energy that I'm cultivating for myself. And my beliefs are a big part of how I do that. And so the goal of my beliefs is to feel good, basically. And there are a lot of people who believe a lot of things because their biggest motivation is that they want to believe things that are true. Well, there are a lot of things that are true, and some of them make you feel good and some of them don't. And it's like, you can believe whatever you want, you can think whatever you want, you can be motivated by whatever you want, but it really does pay in the long run to spend some time thinking about, what is the goal of my beliefs? What is my motivation by believing this? What do I get out of it? Is it worth it? You know, we have Venus moving through Taurus these next 4 weeks. And during that time, Venus will make conjunctions with Uranus and the North Node, who are already hanging out there, making their own longer transits. So Venus conjuncts Uranus June 11th through the 13th is kind of like the wider period around that exact conjunction. And that's happening at 16 degrees Taurus. And then on June 16th and 17th, Venus will conjunct the North Node in Taurus at 22 degrees. So both of these transits, and really Venus moving through Taurus, will be a blanket of love on any of your own Taurus placements that you might happen to have. Like my ascendant's at 0 degrees Taurus and my Jupiter's at 23. So that's like right next to this like North Node Venus conjunction that's happening right before my birthday. So this Venus transit these next 4 weeks will be like a blanket of self-nurturing, where again, it's about finding that daily ritual of meeting up with yourself. One of the, well, I guess I'll just share both of the cards that came through. So the first one was the Queen of Cups. And this one to me every time jumps out as someone who is in their own flow. You can't be in your own flow and be wrapped up in the dramas of the world. Like I hate to say, like, just don't even worry about what's going on out there. But until you're here, don't let it in. Like we have to choose what we allow to come into our system and what isn't the vibration that we want to cultivate. And this Gemini Sagittarius energy that we have playing out in this current lunar cycle is helping us to find a detached perspective that lets us focus purely on what is going to get us in our own flow. And once we're in our own flow, then we can tackle the problems of the world with a solution-oriented, high vibe, loving mindset. But until then, we kind of got to isolate. And that's where this card was the second one that came. And this one reminds me of my desk, like in my morning time, where every day I show up to my morning time. It'll be 6 years. July 9th of 2022 will be 6 years since I promised to myself to do daily morning time, daily self-care. And sometimes that includes exercise, sometimes it includes journaling, sometimes it includes meditation, sometimes it includes listening to spiritual teachers that resonate with my heart. Sometimes it includes deep diving into some random ass topic that I woke up in the morning and I can't not research, the 2008 financial crisis or whatever it is. So every day, though, I start my day right here, face to face with myself. And I invest that energy into myself because I am worth it. And day by day by day by day, this is how we cultivate our soil. This is how we give ourselves the nutrients that we need. And spending time with ourselves, honoring where we are, honoring what's inside us, letting our story help be a vessel for letting us externalize our emotions so that we can witness them, and not using a judgment of our story to beat up on ourselves, but to allow ourselves to meet our own current leading edge of where we are right now, and honoring that in the spirit of I am going to tend to where I am right now, and then I'll be able to take a step forward. I'm going to get in my own flow, and then I will be able to have a clear vision of the path forward. So there is a clarity of personal spirit that is moving in, and it is coming through a bit of shadow triggering energy that is like having us move into our own isolation. And within that isolation, the dust settles and our own clarity emerges and the path forward becomes clear. Thank you so much for joining me, friends. I have had the best time, literally been my pleasure to join you for this morning's energy reading for the next few weeks. Like I said, I'll be back with some other readings pretty much every Monday still. Sometimes it'll be a clip from a time before, but something to get you started in your week each and every Monday. I'm so glad that you're here. It is so beyond amazing to connect with you in this space. And until next time, I hope you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.